70-year-old Bill Harrison collapsed against a wall, coffee dripping from his worn uniform, laughter echoing around him. Useless old man, they mocked. Nobody knew the fated janitor once commanded elite soldiers in Vietnam. Bill Harrison had been working as a janitor at Pinnacle Medical Center for 3 years. Every morning, he arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, military punctuality ingrained in him despite the decades since his service. His stooped shoulders and thinning white hair made him nearly invisible to the doctors and administrators rushing through the gleaming corridors. Bill's weathered hands, spotted with age, pushed his cleaning cart methodically through the hospital's pristine halls. His faded blue uniform hung loosely on his thin frame, the pants slightly too short, revealing worn work boots. A small pin on his chest pocket, barely noticeable, was his only connection to his military past. He didn't mind being invisible. After years in the chaos of war, anonymity felt like peace. The hospital staff saw only an old man with a slight limp and permanently hunched back, just another minimum wage janitor keeping the floors clean. But behind Bill's gentle eyes lay stories of courage that would stun them all if they ever bothered to ask. It started with whispers as Bill mopped near the nurse's station. "Here comes the fossil," Dr. Jessica Hayes muttered just loud enough for Bill to hear. At 45, she was a hospital star neurologist, Harvard-educated with designer wardrobe and a merciless attitude toward anyone she deemed beneath her. Mark Reynolds, the administrative director, chuckled beside her, bet he can barely remember which end of the mop to use. Mark's custom suits and carefully styled hair screamed ambition. At 38, he was gunning for the hospital CEO position and saw belittling staff as sport. "God, he smells like mothballs," Nurse Lauren Kim whispered, wrinkling her nose as Bill passed. 29 and obsessed with her social media following, Lauren often filmed day-in-the-life videos at work, careful to capture only the glamorous parts of hospital life. Bill pretended not to hear as he continued working, his movements slower than the younger staff, but thorough. Years of military discipline kept him focused despite their cruelty. "Hey, Grandpa," Mark called out, making several interns turn. "You missed a spot. Or do you need glasses to see the floor these days?" Bill smiled politely. "I'll get it, sir. Thank you for pointing it out." His gentle response only emboldened them. "Sir, did you hear that?" Jessica laughed. "He thinks he's still in the Army or something. Probably the only job he could get after being discharged," Lauren added. "Too bad they don't have retirement homes for failed veterans." Bill absorbed the blow silently, his eyes momentarily closing. Decades ago, he would have had the authority to discipline such disrespect. Now, he simply turned his cart around and moved to another corridor, his weathered hands never stopping their work. Tuesday morning brought new torment. Bill was carefully wiping down the glass display case containing the hospital's awards when Dr. Hayes approached with her entourage. "Careful with that. Old-timer. Those are actual achievements. Something you wouldn't understand," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Bill nodded respectfully. "Beautiful awards, ma'am. The hospital should be proud." Jessica exchanged glances with Mark and Lauren. "Speaking of achievements, we're curious. What exactly did you accomplish before ending up pushing a mop? Anything worth mentioning?" Bill's eyes flickered briefly to his reflection in the glass. A stooped old man where once stood a decorated soldier. "Just did my duty, ma'am." "Duty?" Mark snorted. "Sweeping floors is hardly duty. I bet you've never made a real difference in your entire life." A young intern looked uncomfortable but remained silent as Lauren pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages while actually recording. "This is gold for my hospital character series," she whispered to Mark. The confrontation might have ended there if Jessica hadn't accidentally bumped into a medical supply cart while walking away. Surgical tools and packaged equipment scattered across the freshly mopped floor. "Oops," she said with mock concern. "Looks like you got more cleaning to do." Bill slowly got down on his aching knees, his hunchback making the simple task painful. As he reached for a fallen stethoscope, Mark deliberately stepped over him like he was furniture. "Watch it," Mark said. "Don't break a hip, Grandpa." Several staff members laughed as Bill struggled to get back up, his arthritic joints protesting. A flicker of something, not quite anger, but a quiet dignity, crossed his lined face as he silently continued picking up the scattered supplies, one by one. Friday afternoon brought the worst incident yet. Bill was cleaning the staff lounge when Dr. Hayes, Mark, and Lauren entered, engaged in loud conversation about weekend plans. "God, I need this coffee," Jessica groaned, pouring herself a large cup. She turned, feigning surprise at Bill's presence. "Still here? Don't you ever take days off?" "The floors don't clean themselves, ma'am," Bill replied quietly, focusing on wiping down tables. Mark snickered. "Must be sad having nothing better to do. No family waiting for you? Or did they all give up on you too?" Bill's weathered hands paused momentarily. He had a daughter in Oregon who called monthly, but his wife had passed 5 years ago. The reminder stung. "Speaking of pathetic," Lauren whispered, filming discreetly with her phone, "check out his shoes. Bet he got those at the Salvation Army." Brian Foster, the department head, entered the lounge, his presence commanding immediate attention. At 52, he prided himself on running a tight ship and had never hidden his disdain for support staff. "Harrison," he barked, "why isn't the East Wing corridor cleaned yet? We have board members visiting in an hour." "I'll get to it right away, sir," Bill answered, gathering his supplies. "See that you do. And try moving faster than a dying turtle," Brian added, triggering laughter from the others. What happened next seemed accidental to outsiders, but was clearly deliberate. As Bill turned to leave, Jessica stepped back with her full coffee cup, colliding with him. Hot coffee splashed across Bill's uniform and the floor. "You idiot!" she shrieked, though she caused a collision. "Look what you made me do." "I'll clean it up, ma'am," Bill said, wincing from the hot liquid seeping through his clothes. "You're useless," Mark joined in, pushing Bill's cart toward him roughly. "How hard is it to watch where you're going?" Lauren captured everything on her phone, narrating, "This is what happens when they hire incompetent people." Brian stepped forward, his face red with manufactured anger. "Get out. Take the rest of the day off. I don't want patients seeing you like this." Bill stood dripping with coffee, humiliation evident in his downcast eyes, as the group's laughter followed him toward the exit. Bill retreated to the small maintenance closet that doubled as the janitorial staff's break room. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to dab the coffee stains from his uniform with paper towels. The skin underneath had reddened from the hot liquid, but he'd endured far worse pain. Alone in the dimly lit space, he sank onto a metal folding chair and exhaled deeply. From his pocket, he withdrew a worn leather wallet. Inside, protected by a plastic sleeve, was a faded photograph of young men in military fatigues, arms around each other's shoulders, standing before a helicopter. His finger traced the faces, so many now gone. In the center stood a younger Bill Harrison, tall and proud, no hint of the stoop that would later define him. Beside him was a man whose face had appeared on news programs and military publications in recent years. Bill rarely reached out to his old comrades, especially those who had risen through the ranks. He believed in fighting his own battles, just as he had in the jungles of Vietnam. But today, the weight of humiliation pressed down on him harder than his damaged spine ever could. From his wallet, he pulled out a card with a number he rarely called. His gnarled finger hesitated over his outdated flip phone. Was it worth disturbing a busy man over something as trivial as workplace bullying? After a moment's deliberation, Bill returned the card to his wallet without making the call. He straightened his stained uniform as best he could and prepared to return to work. Some battles weren't worth fighting. The hospital's main entrance door slid open at precisely 3:15 p.m., admitting a distinguished man in his late 60s. General Robert Sterling walked with a straight-back posture of someone accustomed to command, his silver hair cut short in military fashion. Though dressed in civilian suit, there was no mistaking the authority in his bearing. The receptionist straightened instinctively. "May I help you, sir?" "I'm here for the Veterans Affairs inspection," Sterling replied, his voice deep and measured. "I understand you have several veterans on staff and receive federal funding for veteran care." "Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Reynolds will be your guide. Let me call him for you." Minutes later, Mark Reynolds hurried through the lobby, hand extended in greeting. General Sterling, what an unexpected honor. We weren't expecting the Veterans Affairs inspection until next week. I prefer unannounced visits. They show me how veterans are really treated, Sterling replied, his handshake firm but brief. I understand you have veterans working here. Mark looked momentarily confused. Veterans? Well, we have some in our medical staff, I'm sure. Dr. Foster would know better. Just then, Bill emerged from a hallway, pushing his cleaning cart, his uniform still bearing coffee stains. He kept his eyes down, focusing on his work. And what about your support staff? Sterling asked, his gaze tracking Bill's movement. Oh, the janitors? I wouldn't know, honestly. We don't really. Sterling's expression hardened slightly. Every position deserves respect, Mr. Reynolds. That's something I've learned over 40 years of military service. Mark laughed nervously. Of course, of course. Shall we begin the tour? Dr. Hayes is eager to show you our new neurological wing. The janitors can wait. Sterling's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Lead the way. The tour group, consisting of General Sterling, Mark, Jessica, and Brian, rounded the corner to find Bill carefully cleaning a display case of medical achievements. Lauren hovered nearby, phone in hand, hoping to capture content for her social media. And this is our award wall, Mark said proudly. Pinnacle Medical has been recognized as... General Sterling had stopped listening. His eyes were fixed on Bill, who continued working, unaware of their presence. Excuse me, Sterling said, breaking away from the group and approaching the janitor. Sergeant Major Harrison? Bill Harrison? Bill turned, confusion crossing his weathered face before recognition dawned. He straightened as much as his damaged spine would allow and rendered a perfect military salute. General Sterling, sir. Sterling returned the salute with equal precision, then extended his hand. It's been too long, old friend. The hospital staff watched in bewilderment as a distinguished general embraced the coffee-stained janitor with genuine affection. You two know each other? Jessica asked, unable to mask her shock. Know each other? Sterling laughed. Sergeant Major Harrison saved my life and the lives of 14 other men during the Tet Offensive. One of the bravest men I've ever served with. Bill looked embarrassed by the praise. Just doing my duty, sir. Sergeant Major? Brian echoed weakly. One of the highest non-commissioned officer ranks, Sterling explained, noting their confusion. And a Silver Star recipient, if memory serves. Bill's hand unconsciously moved to his chest pocket, where the edge of a Purple Heart medal was barely visible beneath his uniform. You never mentioned any of this, Mark said accusingly. You never asked, Bill replied simply. Lauren had stopped filming, her phone hanging limply at her side. Wait, Jessica interjected, desperate to salvage the situation. If you're such good friends with the general, why are you working as a janitor? Sterling's expression darkened. An excellent question, Dr. Hayes. Why would a decorated veteran with extensive leadership experience be relegated to cleaning floors while being treated with such obvious disrespect? The silence that followed was deafening. General Sterling's face had transformed, military authority radiating from every line. Mr. Reynolds, I'd like to use your office for a moment. Sergeant Major Harrison, please join us. Dr. Hayes, Mr. Foster, you too. Lauren tried to slip away, but Sterling's voice stopped her. You as well, Ms. Kim. Bring your phone. Inside Mark's office, the tension was palpable. The 4 hospital staff stood awkwardly while Bill took a seat at Sterling's insistence. Let me be clear about who I am, Sterling began. I'm not just conducting a Veterans Affairs inspection. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and I sit on the board that oversees federal funding for hospitals like Pinnacle. Mark paled visibly. Sir, I can explain. I'm not interested in explanations. Sterling cut him off. I'm interested in actions. Ms. Kim, please hand me your phone. Lauren reluctantly complied. Sterling quickly found the video she'd taken of Bill being mocked and humiliated. Excellent evidence, he remarked coldly. The Department of Veterans Affairs takes discrimination against veterans very seriously, as does the federal government that provides 30% of this hospital's funding. Brian stepped forward. General, This is clearly a misunderstanding. Is it a misunderstanding that you called a decorated combat veteran a dying turtle? That Dr. Hayes deliberately spilled coffee on him? That Mr. Reynolds has been encouraging staff to mock a man who led troops in combat while you were still in diapers? Jessica attempted damage control. We had no idea of his background, and that makes it acceptable? Sterling's voice was dangerously quiet. You believe it's appropriate to treat any employee this way, regardless of their service record? He turned to Bill. Sergeant Major, did you file any complaints about this treatment? Bill shook his head. No, sir. Didn't want to cause trouble. Typical, Sterling muttered, always putting others first. He faced the four again. Here's what happens now. All four of you are suspended pending an investigation into workplace harassment and discrimination against a protected veteran. Ms. Kim, your videos will be evidence, and I'll be recommending the hospital board terminate your employment. Mark sputtered, You can't do that. Watch me, Sterling replied. The hospital administrator's office became a flurry of desperate excuses and pleading. My career will be ruined, Jessica protested, her voice cracking. You should consider that before bullying a man who earned the Silver Star pulling wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire, Sterling responded. Lauren was sobbing quietly. Brian and Mark exchanged panicked glances, their careers imploding before their eyes. Throughout the commotion, Bill remained calm, his hands folded in his lap. When Sterling finally asked if he wanted to say anything to his tormentors, Bill slowly stood. I don't wish ill on any of you, he said, his voice soft but clear. In Vietnam, I learned that rank doesn't determine character. Some of the finest men I knew were privates, and some of the worst were officers. He looked at each of them in turn. I'm not ashamed of cleaning floors. Honest work is never shameful. But you should be ashamed of thinking someone's job makes them less deserving of respect. With quiet dignity, Bill nodded to Sterling and walked out, leaving his stunned harasser behind. In the hallway, hospital staff had gathered, whispering among themselves. News travels fast in hospitals. As Bill emerged, followed by Sterling, several nurses straightened their posture. A young doctor stepped forward. Mr. Harrison, she said hesitantly, I've seen how they treat you. I should have said something. I'm sorry. Others murmured agreement. An elderly patient in a wheelchair reached out to shake Bill's hand. Vietnam? He asked, noticing the edge of the Purple Heart. Bill nodded. Thank you for your service, the man said. From one vet to another. For the first time that day, Bill smiled genuinely, the deep lines around his eyes crinkling. Just doing my duty, sir. Same as you. Sterling watched with approval as the hospital staff began to see the hero who had been invisible among them all along. 1 month later, significant changes had transformed Pinnacle Medical Center. Jessica, Mark, Lauren, and Brian had been terminated following the investigation. The hospital had implemented mandatory respect training for all staff and established a veterans support program. Bill continued working as a janitor, but things were different now. Doctors greeted him by name. Nurses sometimes joined him for coffee breaks, eager to hear his carefully told stories from Vietnam. On Veterans Day, the hospital held a special ceremony. Bill arrived to find a photograph, in full uniform from his military days, hanging in the main hall alongside other veteran employees. General Sterling attended, presenting Bill with a long overdue commendation. Some heroes wear uniforms, Sterling told the assembled staff. Others push mop buckets. Respect isn't earned by your job title, but by your character. Bill still worked with the same quiet diligence, his stooped figure moving through hospital corridors. But now, his worn janitor's uniform sported a small addition, his Silver Star pin, finally displayed with pride. Have you ever witnessed someone being underestimated because of their appearance or job? How did you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's remember to respect everyone's journey. You never know what medal someone might be keeping in their pocket.